Oh, hi there. So I'm going to go over some character animator stuff, and I downloaded this puppet called Scribbles. And I opened up Scribbles in here, and just wanted to show you that this will be a Photoshop one, but it doesn't really matter. When I opened up Scribbles, I just drug Scribbles in here, and then once I got the puppet in here, which I just clicked on it, then I drug the puppet down here in the record mode in order to put Scribbles on the timeline. Now, I downloaded this, so I didn't have the file right handy. So to find the file, I'm going to right-click Scribbles and Reveal in Explorer, which is going to open up this, which shows me that this is the drawn file in Photoshop. So if I did want to edit it, at this point I could go ahead and edit it in Photoshop just by double-clicking it. You don't want to move these around, so once you've opened this up in Photoshop, don't go save it somewhere else because you might mess things up. So here it is in Photoshop, and I actually already changed it. This started off looking different. It was a boy, and I wanted it to look more like me, so we have me here instead. But you can see it's basically got the layers like we're used to using in here. And then it has this scribble effect going on, and I needed to modify this background layer because that's all these heads that rotate through. Okay, so that's basically where that came from. And we'll go over some different parts of the window here, and you can see how that affects things. But anyway, so just remember that when we use Character Animator, we start with puppets. They're indicated by that icon there. And puppets are just objects or characters that are drawn in Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. And then we control and rig them in Character Animator to create a performance. Setting up your character to add triggers and behaviors and give it life and handles and all of that, that's called rigging. And you rig in the rig workspace or in this rig group. So you click on rig, and then as you click on these various items, you can do various things. What you don't want to do is mess with anything that doesn't need to be messed with. Don't pick up and move things around in here at all. Also, don't rename things. If you rename them, they won't work anymore. So, for instance, this particular character has a neutral mouth, but it does not have any other mouths. And there are other types of mouths. As a matter of fact, there are 3 camera-based mouth shapes, which means even if you don't have a microphone hooked up, you ought to be able to smile or make a surprised face and have those 3. And so most puppets, when you download them, have a neutral. That's just when they're sitting there like this. And then they usually have a smile. This one doesn't. See? I'm smiling and we're getting nothing. And you're also supposed to have a surprised face, which is usually a circle. And this one doesn't have one. So I could technically go into Photoshop and make additional mouths and put them in there so that I could have those additional mouths. So there's one for neutral. So I could just copy this so that I have a copy of neutral and call it smile if I wanted to. And then I would work just on smile here, which I can't really only work on right now because all of these mouths are in the way. But let's say that, and I can't see that one either, so let me just grab it and put it out here somewhere else for a second. Oops. Okay, yeah, it's down here in the background. Okay, so once you get the layer where you can mess with it, so here we go, it's that just straight up one. And notice they just drew it 3 times, a little bit different each time, so that it makes that wiggle effect. So I could just go in here and erase these and draw them again, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take an eraser on this one, I'm going to erase this one, and now we can see the other one behind it, so let's fix that. Although I kind of need to have one of them on here so I know around where to draw. So you kind of decide how big it's going to be, and I'm going to draw a smile. There's my smile, see? So now if I smile, it'll do that. And then if we want to have a wiggly smile, then each one of these layers needs another smile going on. So for this next layer, which right now looks like this, I need an additional smile. So I'm going to click on this and erase it. And then I'm going to draw another smile. And I'm going to turn on this other smile and turn down the opacity so I can kind of see where it is while I draw this one. Okay, so there we go. And then I'm going to repeat that process with this last one, erasing it. And then turning this one back on so I can see. And then drawing a third smile so that it wiggles a little bit. Okay, so now we have smile. And I'm just going to drag this back up here where it goes. Okay, so we have smile and we have a neutral. Because those are named things. And we call this auto rigging. If you name things a certain way, and you can see some of them have plus signs and they have different things, and they're named these things for a reason, and because they're named that, they work. So if we don't name them, then they're not going to work. So that one has to be called smile. Okay, now I'm going to save this document and pop back over in a character animator, and it should update automatically because that's what character animator does. There, see, I smiled. However, this smile is not set to cycle through the layers. So I'm going to go back to rig, and that's what you do in the rigging, is you make these things do the behaviors or the actions that you want them to do. So here, under neutral, it's set to cycle layers. Under smile, it's not. So I'm going to add this behavior to cycle the layers for smile. And then, while I'm clicked on smile, over here in the properties panel at the bottom, it will start when triggered. And it's going to cycle continuously, meaning it's going to go over and over and over and over and over again. And you decide how many frames. And I don't know how many frames neutral is. It looks like 3 frames. So if we want it to match, we would also set this one to 3 frames. Okay, now if I go, let's see if it works. Oh, there we go, except I forgot to change the opacity on the one. So let's turn that back up. Save, but all should be good now at this point, whenever it redoes it. There we go. Okay, so now we have a smile. And I could do that again for surprise, but for the second time, I'm not going to do that. So anyway, you can look up and see what it means to have things auto-rigged, but auto-rigged things have specific names. That's why this is called left eyebrow, left eye, right eye, and so forth, because they have to be called those things. Pupil, blink, everything has to be called that, and so do these mouths. All right, so additionally, one of these things when they're auto-rigged is they're automatically going to be tagged. So if I go over here to tags, which I have closed right now, if you go over here to tags, you can see because it's called left eyebrow, it's tagged as a left eyebrow. And over here, right eyebrow, and the left eye, and the right eye. And if something wasn't called that, that's what you would have to do. You'd have to manually go to every single one of these things and tag them over here so it knows what's what. Like even with these mouth forms, they match up with certain ones over here. And that's how it knows to use those to make those sounds, you see. Okay, and same thing here, smile, I didn't have to match that up because it was called smile. And neutral, I don't have to match that up. But if I was going to do surprised, if I didn't have it called that, I would have to call it that. Okay, so that's essentially how to do tags. A scene is where we work on everything. So down here it says timeline, scene, scribbles, scene, scribbles. If I click on that, I could close this scene, but that's just what it's called, the area that you work. It contains your puppet. When you record, it also contains your audio and any recorded takes that you have. So once you record it and you have a take in there, you're going to see those takes appear in the scene. So the scene is what appears when we're in the record space, when we're in the record tab. Okay, handles are things that appear on your items in here, and you can't really, I haven't added any handles, but this little button down here adds handles, and you can do various things depending on what the handles are. Now, this puppet didn't come with handles, but most puppets, when you download them, do have handles. They're just locations on a puppet that specify where things connect or where there are specific behaviors. You're more likely going to add different types of handles. So for instance, if we wanted to be able to drag, we would add a dragger handle, which is this one here. An origin handle is a special name for a handle where something attaches to a parent group. So on most characters, and I don't have one open here to show you. Let's see if I have one. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do either. But like if they have a shoulder and you need to attach to a shoulder, that's what an origin handle is going to be used for. So like when I click here, this little thing here is attaching to this body and they're connected, and that origin handle right there is where they're connected. So like that's where my shoulder is going to be, where it connects to the other. You can kind of see it turns green that green area shows where that origin is connected to it. So like if I were to grab a hold of this and move it, see how that connects? That's the origin handle connecting to the parent, and the parent of this arm is the body. So those are origin handles. They attach to things. So for instance, when I'm clicked on my right arm layer over here, it's going to say it's attached to. And usually we're going to have it attached to what we call auto, because if I click it up and I drag it and it has that green on it, then it's automatically attached. And there's various ways to attach to. For now, we're just going to stick with the standard attachments and not mess with them too much. When you have handles, they have tags on them. That's what these little guys are called, your handle tags. So like that's my left arm handle tag and my stick handle tag, because I have sticks in this arm in here. And there's my draggable handle tag. That's all those are. Stick tools are often used kind of in place of where bones would be, so that whenever you're dragging around with something, you don't have to worry about it just completely falling apart. Oh, sorry, this guy has sticks too. I've had a lot of puppets open here today. This is Wilk, but he has sticks in his arm, and so that allows us to better control his arm as I operate him. Okay, and so that's sticks. And the stick tool is you click and drag to draw a stick, and when you click and drag and draw your stick, you decide how long that stick is going to be. Additionally, we have the pin tool, which you'll notice that her feet, and again, you have to be clicked on that body. So notice that yellow part, that's the mesh that shows us where this is. It's the yellow outline around a layer. You have to pay attention to the yellow outline. Like if you're going to add a dragger on your hand, you need to be sure that the yellow outline of the entire arm is selected when you put that handle in there, so that it moves as an arm. If you added it to the hand and it was only yellow around the hand, then you would drag your hand around, and that would be awful. You want to drag the hand and the arm at the same time by the hand, so you have to make sure you're clicked on the right thing, and the mesh shows up that way. So we've got the stick tools, we've got the pin tool, which keeps your person from floating away. That looks like a push pin, and you just push them down here in places. Usually with people, it's like the toe and the ankle, or the heel, I guess you would say, kind of to fix them to the bottom. Again, never pick up your person and move them. You can move the handles by using this black selection tool. You click it and it turns the color. It says it's a fixed handle, and then I can do something with it. But please, whatever you do, don't move your character, their arms, or anything like that when you're in this rig mode. Okay, so draggers allow you to drag, and of course this one has a draggable arm, so if I click off, there is a dragger on the arm so that I can drag the arm. And you'll see that when I click on the arm itself. You can see the dragger, and you can see the sticks there. A dangler is something that you can add. Let me go back to the other scene, Scribbles. So Scribbles has hair that moves automatically, if you notice that. It's just because the hair is set to cycle layers. I'm going to turn that off for a minute, so I'm going to come over here to this layer, which is the hair, and click on it. Well, it's the background, but I'm going to click on it and look at it down here. So you see it cycling. I'm going to tell it to just cycle one time so that I can add some stuff. And then I'm going to have it hold on the last layer, because otherwise it'll cycle once and then go away. So hold on the last layer so it cycles once and then sticks. Alright, so there it cycled once and it sticks. Now that I have my head here, I can add a dangler. So a dangler is like, it'll make the hair move freely. So like, I want to make sure I'm on the right layer, and this is the layer that contains that. If you're not sure, just turn your eyeball on and off. And then I can add like a dangler here and here. Think of this as the connection point. So wherever you're putting these danglers is where it connects. Okay, and then this is going to make the hair dangle, like it's going to move more. So watch when I move my head. I don't know if you can see it very well in here. Let me set my rest pose. It's kind of hard to see. But if you have your danglers in there, then as you move around, these danglers will cause it to sort of move on its own. They say consider these like little balls where they're connected, and then they're hanging from there. Again, not really that noticeable on this one. I'm not really seeing it move. But that's basically how a dangler would work. You like how I'm moving my head around like so? Yeah. So anyway, but you can add in, as many little dangle spots as you want, and then hopefully, if you're having better luck than I'm having right now, you can move your head back and forth and it will dangle. But that's what a dangler does. Behaviors are those things that we can do to control, and we already kind of talked about one of those things. Oh, there it goes. Let's get moving. Well, I saw it move when I was down there farther. Okay, I'm getting a little caught up here too much in this whole situation. Bouncing up and down, trying to move the hair. It is moving a little bit. It's just kind of hard to tell. Anyway, under physics here, it might be because I don't have physics turned on. Sometimes if you have your physics turned on, then it will change the gravity strength and the gravity direction. Let's see if that makes any difference. Get it red. Oh, it is red. I guess it's just not very strong. The dangle stiffness is at 100, so maybe we turn that down. Okay, well, I'm about to give up here. There's bounciness and all kinds of other stuff you can mess with on these dangles if you're on the right part. I'm not a scribble person right now, so I might not be on the right thing. Okay, behaviors, you already know what those are. Things that control your puppet, like cycle layers or the eye gaze. These are behaviors right here. All these things that list here on the side under properties are the behaviors. You can see it says track item behaviors here. Mesh, again, I already went over the yellow outline. Triggers are things that we can make happen because we drag them in. Now, I don't have anything on this one that I can show you with regards to a trigger, but in class, we added triggers so that we would have props or whatever that would pop up, as you know. If you have any triggers, you would have them showing over here in the triggers panel when you're on rig. So if you create like a phone, you want to put the phone so it's connected to the arm, so you would put it in here in Photoshop or Illustrator, so it'd be in here, and then that would connect in. So again, never change the order of your layers over here. You don't want to mess anything up. But like on here, I'll add a trigger on this background, I guess. That's probably not a good idea. We'll just add a trigger that's not connected to anything. Let me make a folder for it and put it in there. All right, so I'm just going to make this little bow, I guess. It's really ugly, but okay, here's my bow. All right, and so what we can do is create a trigger that then makes that bow appear. So we'll go back. I'm just flipping back and forth here like crazy. So my apologies. All right, so there's my little bow, and if I want to use my bow as a trigger, then I can drag it into here to create the trigger. You can also sometimes click on these little guys and create triggers too. The middle one is all the behaviors, and the second one is where you can create a trigger. So I create a trigger. It says bow. I'm going to say B for bow and hit enter. I'm going to latch it so that whenever I turn the bow on, it stays. And then if I come back here, got it, I'm going to press B, and there's my bow. If I press it again, my bow goes away. So that is simply a trigger. Not a very pretty one, but you can see it's very simple to do. You just want to make sure it's got its own little group, and then you just apply that. And you can see here now we've got that little icon representing that we have a trigger there. A swap set is where you have multiple things. So if I had a folder of bows, different bows, I could have a swap set so that as you press to the letter, it would filter through bow 1, bow 2, and bow 3. I'm not going to do that in this example. The thing that's most common for that in the presets are the hands. Like they'll already have hands. So if I go back and I look at this other character here, she has various hand positions. So there's a folder called hand, and then this is a swap set in here. And so there's a swap set for 0.2, 0.1, etc. And then there's numbers assigned to each of those. So only one will show at a time, and you always have one that's your default one that's going to be there in the beginning. And if you're not pressing the buttons, then that one will appear, as long as they're not latched. Cycle layers we've done in class 2. So cycle layers is what makes this animate here, and you saw that just a minute ago. I click on it. You would add the behavior if you didn't already have it to cycle the layers, and then you would come over here and tell it how. Start immediately, how long to go, advance every, and then if you want it to play forward and then backward, you could do that. And if you want it to cycle once or continuously, you could set it to whichever. Okay, so I'll set that back to the normal. Once you've got it ready and you're ready to record your character, then you hit the record button and you make sure all of this is armed if you want it to record everything. And you just hit record, it'll count down. I am recording. I am recording. Okay, so I recorded. She doesn't really have anything fancy. If I would have made the bow come on, then you would see over here. So this is my second take. I recorded one before I had you join me. But you see it says take 2 camera input, take 2 audio input, and then down here, visemes. These are those mouth positions. So if I didn't like the way those mouth positions appeared, and I can't quite see my zoom thing here, but here we go. You can see like which ones are where. So that goes ah when I opened my mouth, and you see the one that says ah. If I needed to move it, like if it was off a little bit, you can pick these up and scoot them or make them last longer or whatever. You can adjust those right here in the visemes. So visemes are just visual representations of sounds. Phonemes are the sounds themselves, the sounds you make. All right, so we have a take in there. Once you have this finished, let's pretend we're finished. You could export this out to use it in another program. If you're using it, like if you just want to upload it to YouTube, you just go to export video via Adobe Media Encoder. And that is the most common way. However, if you wanted to have it where it stayed connected, so like if I go to edit a video and I want to use this person in the video, but I still want to be able to come in here and edit it. You know, like we're allowed to go in and edit it in Photoshop or Illustrator and it updates automatically. If you want it to update automatically, you have to use Adobe Dynamic Link. I really don't recommend doing that a lot. I prefer to just get my cartoon made and pull it into my other program as a video. But Adobe Dynamic Link would allow you to keep it a live connection to the original character animator scene, so you could edit. Okay, so typically you're going to export by going to the Media Encoder. It's actually a separate program, and it makes you save it first. So always pay attention to where it's going to go. I get in the habit of trying to save to my videos folder. Once we have it in there, this new program will start up, Adobe Media Encoder, and most commonly, if you're just going to update or upload it to YouTube, you're going to choose the most common YouTube format, which is H.264. And it probably will default to that, or you can even choose YouTube as the encoding of your choice. So mine automatically said H.264, but I could click this drop-down arrow and choose like YouTube, and it would know that it's H.264. See, it put it in there, even if I chose YouTube. It usually is just set to match source. And that's what it will come up as. Now, there are some presets down here on the side. There is one called GoPro Cineform that might be useful if you're bringing it into another program because you can send it out with the alpha attached. And alpha means that your background is transparent. So it's going to come out with a black background if you just upload it this way. Because you can put a background behind something in here. And so if you're just going to export it straight out like we would in class, you could just put it in YouTube format, hit this play button, and be done. But if you wanted it to be with an alpha, I'm going to click that and drag it in. So now it's going to export 2 versions. It's going to do a Cineform with alpha, and it's also going to do an H.264. So then I have 2 versions. So when I hit this, it would record both of those versions. Notice they're both going into that videos folder. So pay attention to where they are going. But anyway, that is a pretty thorough overview to the items in Character Animator that we've used in my class. So I just hope this helps as far as a review goes. Just remember, whenever your person's acting crazy, set your rest pose. And then it'll all be good. You don't set it when you're smiling, or your neutral won't be neutral. There. Okay. Have a good one, folks.